Hashpud, the haskala, these are grills, or like it's a shish kebab stick, right? That you put directly on the fire. So magilin bechamin. To kasher them, you just have to pour hot water over it. Now, there's going to be other Gemaras. We learned it of Avodah Zarah, a concept of keboiloi kach polto. How a kli absorbs flavor, that's how we have to get rid of the flavor. So, for example, a regular pot that you use water to cook with, you cook meat in a pot and absorbs the meat of the pot. It absorbs the flavor of the meat. How do you kasher such a pot? You put it in hot water, because the way the flavor got into the wall of the pot, that's how you get it out. Now, if you have grill on a barbecue and the meat is directly on the grill, so you have to do libun gomer. It's not enough to pour hot water on a grill. You have to get the grill white hot, because it absorbed directly from the fire the flavor of the meat. That's how you get rid of it. So we're going to have to resolve, how come here by kotshim it's enough to just pour hot water on it? You don't need to do libun gomer. Certainly for tray food, you need libun. But by kotshim, they seem to be more lenient, that it would work. You just hagala. It's not required. My time at Rav Tarfon. Rav Tarfon is the one who made the statement that if you start cooking first day of Pesach, you don't have to do mrika or shtifa at the end of when you can eat that pot. Excuse me. Let's say you cooked a shlomim on the first day of Pesach. Well, that shlomim can be eaten the first day and the second day. Then you can't eat it anymore, because you can only eat a shlomim for 2 days. At the end of the 2 days, according to the not Rav Tarfon, you have to do the mrika or shtifa right away. According to Rav Tarfon, you only have to do it at the end of Yontif. Why? The Amar Kro Fanisa Baboker Valachta Lo Halecha. At the end of Yontif. The next morning, you go home and go back home. Hakosov Asola Kulan Boiker Echad. It's the whole Yontif is considered like 1 day. So just like regular kotshim that can only be eaten for 1 day, the Mariko Shtifa is done at the end of the day. The whole Yontif is also, it's like the end of the day. Maski Floravach Boy Barami. What's going on? The Chiein Pigel Beregel? What, Pigel doesn't work on Yontif? What, all these the dinim, that means normally Pigel is if I have in mind to eat it tomorrow. So all of a sudden, by Yontif, it's 8 days is considered 1 day, so Pigel doesn't work. You don't create Pigel when you think about the next day? Ein noiser beregel? What? When you leave over kotchim till the next day, it becomes noiser. So we get rid of that according to Rav Tarfon? Maybe you'll say, yeah. Rav Tarfon maybe holds there's no Pigel noiser. I vatanya Rav Nosson Omer. Lo amar Rav Tarfon elazu bilvad. It's only regarding this law of Mrika Shtifa that Rav Tarfon held the whole Yontif is 1 day. But really, he holds of Pigel, he holds of noiser. So where did Rav Tarfon get this? Elok Rav Nachman Amar Rav Ravua. Dar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Ravua. Kol yom v'yom nasa giyu lechavero. So on the first day of Yontif, you cooked. On the second day of Yontif, you also cooked. That's the Hagala for the first day. And the third day is the Hagala for the every day when you cook it is the Hagala for the previous day. And the Chachamim obviously don't accept that. They say that if it's a type of korban that you can only eat for 1 day, you have to do the Mrika Shtif after 1 day. It's after the Zman Achila is over. If it's a Shlomim 2 days, that's when you do the Mrika Shtifa. Well, the Gemara didn't really understand yet. My kamar. Rav Nachman Bar Avua. Mamtinin ladzman achila v'hodar arvid le'merika shtifa. You wait until it's no longer the time that you can eat it, and then you do the merika shtifa. Menanamili. How do you know this? Rav Yochanan mishum Abi Yosef ben Abba. Ksiv umorak v'shutaf b'mayim. You have to do merika shtifa. Uksiv kol zachar b'kohanim yochal. It's connected to the concept of the male kohanim eating it. Haketzad. Mamtinan lo adzman achila v'hodar avid lo merika shtifa. You wait until it's no longer the time that the kohanim can eat it, and then you do the merika shtifa. Then the Mishnah said, merika, the purging, is kemrika sakos, and shtifa is like rinsing the kos. Torabana. Merika shtifa b'tzonim. Purging it and rinsing it. Remember, we had a machlokes. One says merika means the inside cleaning, and shtifa means the outside cleaning. The other held merika meant scrubbing. Either way, it can be done with cold water. Divrei Rebbe. Chamim oimrim, no. Merika b'chamin, either the cleaning the inside of the vessel or scrubbing the inside has to be done with hot water. Ushtifa b'tzonim. My time in Rabbanon. Just like by Melchemes Midyan, when we brought kalim that were used by Avodah Zarah nicks, we were told we have to do Hagala. So too, and that's with hot water, so too, when we do the merika, it has to be done with hot water. Remember, if you cook kodshim in a pot, and now it's the next day, the absorbed flavor is really noiser because it's beyond the day, which is a prohibited thing, right? You get chorus if you eat noiser. Rebbe Amar L'cha, so why doesn't Rebbe say you need Hagala? Because Rebbe says that when we talk about Merika Shtifa, we're not talking about Hagala. Hagala lo kamina. Of course you have to do Hagala. This is after Hagala, and that certainly has to be done with hot water. Ki kamina l'mika shtifa de bosra Hagala. We're talking about the rinsing and the purging after Hagala. And certainly you need to use hot water to get rid of the noiser. The Rabbanon, what do the Rabbanon say? Imkein lichtov kra, o morak morak, o shutaf shutaf. Why give me two words? And both can be done with cold water. Why can't you just say, why did it switch and say o morak shutaf? Shma mina that the methodology is different. Merika b'chamin ushtifa b'tzoyne. What does Rebbe say to that? Iksiv morak morak. Having a trey zimni morak. Maybe you just have to do merika twice. Or trey zimni shutaf. Remember, merika might be inside cleaning, and shutaf is outside cleaning. But you just have to double it up. Lekach ksiv morak v'shutaf. Lo melacha merika kamrika sakos. You have to first wash the inside of the cup. Shtifa b'shtifa sakos. Then you rinse the outside of the cup. Both are done with cold water, according to Rebbe. Mishnah. Bishel bo kodshim b'chulin. You cook kodshim and chulin in the same pot. Or kodshim b'kodshim kalim. Or you cook the chatas and let's say a shlomim in the same pot. If so, one of them is more prohibited. For example, kodshim and chulin. For example, we can't eat a chatas, so only kohanim can. And let's say it mixes with chulin. So if there is flavor, if there's more than 1/60th ratio, and I can taste the kodshim, then the mixture cannot be eaten. It has to be eaten with the more stringent item. Only Kohanim would be able to eat it. Right? Arek, then if the more stringent item is giving flavor, then the lenient item has to be eaten with all the various stringencies of the more chomerdik. However, einon tu'unin riko shtifa. But you do not require riko shtifa in those cases. Even though the kosher kalim was cooked with the kosher kochim, so we'll see. Does it mean it doesn't? You have to wait until the more stringent one in one day, even though the kalim you can eat it for 2 days. So far, it says it doesn't require mariko shtifa, and einan poislim b'maga. Normally, if kochim touches, let's say regular chulin, and that piece of meat absorbs flavor from that, you can't eat it. However, it doesn't passel b'maga. Rokik shenoga barokik. You have a mincha that's like a cracker. One touches the other, or chaticha b'chaticha, which is a piece of meat, touches another piece of meat. So lo kol harakikin v'lo kol chaticha, it's not always osir. And it depends on how it happens. And osir b'makom shabola. Even if it does touch, you just have to scrape away, you have to scrape away an edzba, right? If it's very fatty, then the next piece of meat will absorb the whole thing. Otherwise, it's just a fingernail's breath. Now, my kamar, what did it? The Gemara doesn't understand what it says, that you do not need to do mariko shtifa after you cook a mixture. I mean, if you said if it's nois and tan, then it's there. So why shouldn't we say you can only eat the mixture with the chumras of the more chumr thing? Well, why wouldn't we say that it passes b'maga and it requires mariko shtifa? So the Gemara explains: Im yesh ben b'nois and tam, if it's less than 1/60th ratio, so you can test the flavor of the kochim. Harei akalin necholim kechamurim. So if you had chulin now touches this kochim meat, so you could only eat the chulin for 1 day, which is the rule for the shlamim, and to unim mariko shtifa. Of course, you have to do mariko shtifa because you cook kochim and there's a flavor there. Upois b'maga. And if they touch something, the thing that they touch becomes osir like a chatas. Here comes the kicker. Ein b'hem b'nois tam. If there's greater than 60 to 1, chulin to the kochim, ein akalim necholim kechamurim. Then you can eat your chulin no matter what. Ve'ein tunim mariko shtifa, you don't need mariko shtifa. Ve'ein poislim b'maga, doesn't puzzle another piece of something when it touches it. Fine. Need the kochim lobo. If, let's say, it was not nois and tam, we say it doesn't require mariko shtifa. But kochikalim nipli, if it's a mixture of kochim with kochikalim, there's still, we learned you have to do mariko shtifa for both. On Rabbiya, my ain't to unin the komar, kochim. Aval kochikalim to unin. You do require mariko shtifa if it was cooked there, because, or let's say it's beyond the time that you can eat the kochim, and then you can't do it. Certainly, it requires mariko shtifa even for the kochikalim. And Rava Omar Hamani Reb Shimoni the Omar kochim kalim ain't to unim mariko shtifa. Perhaps Rava says the Mishnah is according to the opinion of Reb Shimon that you don't do Marika Shtifa by Koche Kachim. So Bishma Rava, Hanu Diktani, O Koche Kachim, Koche Kalim. The Mishnah gave us an option of cooking Kochim with Chulin or cooking Kochim with Koche Kalim. And Labaya, Tarti Lam, what I need both examples. Srichi. Abaya claims you need it. The Itan Kochim v'chulin. If I had only been told the case of Kochim v'chulin that they were cooked together, having chulin u'du mevatle Kochim to lav minayu. So min b'min, really this is min b'sheinu min, and the chulin is mevatel the Kochim. Ava Kochim v'Kochim kalim. They're both Kochim, and maybe min b'mino, a malo, maybe chlal. There's no bittul. So I had to say that no, there's bittul. If I would have only had the case of the two types of kochim, maybe there's a certain koach of the kochim to mevat. Avachulin, maybe emelo, maybe you can't be mevatel it. Tzricha. I had to be told in both cases. Then we said rokik shigib rokik. If a cracker of a mincha touched another cracker, so it's not the whole cracker becomes also just the place where it touched. It says whatever a chatas touches, it gets the chumrah, all the dinim of what touched it. So it becomes like a chat. Maybe even if there was no absorption of flavors. Talmud Lomer bibsora. It's not just them just touching them. It's got to be deeper, and there's absorption usually because it's hot. Achi bola bibsora. There's got to be some absorption from one into the other. Yachol noga b'miktzas chaticha. And I might have thought that if a chatas touches another piece of meat only in a small area, yekul apostle, maybe it doesn't make a difference. The whole thing would become apostle. Talmud Lamer yiga. Hanogei apostle. That only that area that touched. Now I've already told you that's only by a non-fatty piece of meat. We learn in your Yoredeya that if that which is touched is very fatty, it spreads through the whole. And since, okay, haketzad choyteches mokum shabola, you cut away just the place of contact. Then it says bibsora, v'lo begidin. If you touched an area like the gid, there's no transference of flavor, only meat. V'lo batzomis, not to bone. V'lo b'karnayim, not to the horn. V'lo batlafayim, not to the hoof. Yigdash lios kamoa. If a chatas touches it, the item that it touched becomes kadosh like the chatas. Haketza. Im psula let's say it's a chatas that became posel, tiposel. And also, whatever it touches becomes posel. Im ksherihi te'ochel kachamer shabon. If a chatas touches a kosher piece of meat, then the kosher piece of meat can be eaten, but only with the stringencies of a chatas. That means if you're not a kohen, you can't eat it. Now, amai. How come you have a kosher korban, it touches something from a puzzle dika korban? Why does it become puzzle? We're using v'nesi asay v'litches los asay. We have a mitzvah asay to eat korbanos. Then we have this lo tasay of not eating korbanos that are puzzle. Normally we have a concept, and asay is doicha lois asay. So let the asay of eating kochim override the los asay of not eating puzzle dika korbanos. Amar Rava. New rule. Ein asay doiches los asay shabamikdash. In the base of Mikdash, the assay doesn't trump the lav. Shenamar, the etzem lo sish ruvo. It says by the Korban Pesach that you may not break a bone. Now, let's say the bone has bone marrow in it, which is considered like meat of the Korban Pesach. Now, the question is, why am I? Why would the lav of breaking a bone apply even when there is marrow there? We have a mitzvah saseh to eat the Korban Pesach. Neisei aseh v'litchis lo saseh. Let the aseh of eating the Korban Pesach override the lo taseh of breaking the bone. Must be, right? Because we say you're not allowed to eat it, right? And don't break its bone to get to the marrow. In halachas that apply to the base of Mikdash, we don't say aseh is dorech lo taseh. So that's one. That's the way Rava answered. Now, Rav Ashi Omar, Yigdash Asehu. There is another that you have to keep Kodshim holy. So that's also an Aseh. So you have a lot Aseh of eating Posadika Korbanos. And then you have an Aseh of you have to keep Korbanos Kodesh. So the assay of eating a good korban is aimed assay doichet los assay ve'assay. Combination of a lot assay and assay cannot be overridden by an assay. Fine. Ashkechan chatas the miskash bebalua. So if a korban chatas touches a piece of meat, so that piece of meat becomes kodesh like a chatas. But these dinim are only taught by chatas. What about shar kotshim inolam? How about a shlomim? How about a pesach? How about an osham? How about an ola? Omer shmuel mishum Rabbi Eliezer. Zosa Torah la ola la mincha v'la chatas v'la hasham v'la miluim u'lezevach hashlamim. Now, why do we say la oila? Ki oila. Ma oila tu una kli. An ola requires a kli. You have to receive the blood of an ola to do the zrika. Av kol tu una kli. All the other korbanos require a kli. Now, Mike, what kli are we talking about here? My kli. Ilem mizrak. Are you referring to the bowl that you collect the dam when you shech, right? So b'shalmei tzibur nami ksiv behu vayikach Moshe chatzi adam vayasem ba'ganot. By the Shlomim, by the Har Sinai, Moshe also received the blood in a bowl. So we already have, that's already by Matan Torah. We don't need to compare the other korbanos to an ola for that because we already had it. So what is the kli we're talking about by the ola? The sakin. We're talking about the knife that was used for shechita. The ola gufa minolan. How do you know? Where's the source that a korban ola needs a knife? By the Akedah, it says Avram used a knife. When they found the ram in the bushes there, and he slaughtered the ram instead of Yitzchak, it was la'ola tachas beno. So the Gemara says the source for why you need a knife to shecht an ola comes from the Akedah. So we said, why do we need the word ola? Just like ola needs a kli, and what kli we talk about, a shechita knife, so do all the kodshim. Then it mentioned mincha. Ma mincha in achalas l'zichrei kuhuna. A mincha can only be eaten by male kohanim. I've called Einam Nacholim Azrei Kuna. The other korbanos mentioned there, Zostor La'olu Lamincha V'Lachatas V'La'asham. Those can only be eaten by Kohanim. However, it says V'Lamiluim V'Lezevach Hashlamim. We'll have to see where that fits in. Because we know that usually non-Kohanim can eat a shlamim. Now, Maihi, what do you mean all korbanos are going to be compared to mincha? So to all, and therefore only can be eaten by male kohanim. What about other kotrim kalim that can be eaten by anybody? So, ichatis v'asham, we don't need a limud from mincha here about Einam Nacholim El Zirchei Ku'una for chatas and an ashram because it says directly by those korbanos. Badeksibu kol zachar bakonim yochlenu. By chatas and an ashram, by both of them, it says clearly only male kohanim can eat them. Now, there is a shlomim that's a little different. That's a shlomim that's a communal shlomim. There's only one example of that. That's the shtei alechem, the shtei kvasim that's offered on Shavuos. So that's a public shlomim. Ishal made tzibur. We also know that that shlomim can also only be eaten by kohanim, but it's miribu de kroyosi. It's a drasha from a pasuk. It says bakodesh hakodoshim tochlenu kol zachar yochalosa. Limit al shlamei tzur b'shen hachalim al zirchei kuhuna. So the Gemara is asking, what do I need this limud of mincha, where it says that a mincha can only be eaten by male kohanim to teach me all the other korbanos? It says beferish only male kohanim can eat it. Oh, tanoyi. So it's a machlokes tanoim. This we're going to leave. So we're in the midst of a very nice sugya here. This we're going to leave till tomorrow, which has a small blot. We'll do tzaddik ches, God willing, and tzaddik tes, and then we should be caught up.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, very good, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Go ahead.